Last night, as we kindled our first Hanukkah candle on the front steps, I shared my reflections on the meaning of Hanukkah this year with regard to the challenges the Jewish community faces. If you want to hear those, they're online. Tonight, though, I just want to tell you my favorite Hanukkah story. And it's by Isaac Bashevis Singer, and it begins like this. One night about 10 years ago, I was sitting around the dining room table with my son David, and we were spinning the dreidel. It was the 8th night of Hanukkah. My wife Esther was in the kitchen frying up the latkes, and on our windowsill was our Hanukkah menorah, the 8 candles that I had lit and the 8 more that appeared to be reflected in the glass. Well, as David and I sat spinning the dreidel, all of a sudden David called out, "Papa, look!" And I looked over at the window, and outside the window there was a little green and yellowish bird flying around outside. Clearly it had been attracted by the light of our Hanukkah menorah. Now, parakeets are warm weather birds, and outside it was cold and it was snowing, and I knew that the bird couldn't last out there for long, so I went over to the window and I moved the Hanukkah menorah to the side, and I opened up the glass, and with one motion of my arm, I swooshed the bird inside, and then I shut the window. Well, the bird flew all around our dining room, flew from wall to wall and floor to ceiling, until finally the little bird perched on top of our chandelier. And there it sat, and David went over to it, and all of a sudden the little bird hopped from the chandelier onto my son David's head. And David was so excited to have this little parakeet on his head, he started jumping around and dancing and singing. And my wife Esther came in from the kitchen. She said, "What's all of this noise?" And then she said, "How'd you get a bird all of a sudden?" And David said, "Mama, you'll never believe it. The bird came to our window. Papa rescued it." Well, David then put his hand up to his forehead, and the little bird hopped from David's head onto his finger. And David brought the bird over to the dining room table. My wife Esther had gone back into the kitchen to get a little dish of water and some seeds and brought them out. And the little bird sipped from the water and pecked at the seeds. And then you know what the bird did? It hopped off the dish and began to hop across the dining room table over to the dreidel that we'd been playing with. And then with its beak, it began poking at the dreidel. And David called out, "Look, Papa, Mama, the bird plays dreidel." Well, the bird had a great time. We had a great time. David certainly had a great time. And he said, "You know what, Mama, Papa, we've got to come up with a name for this bird. We've got to go buy it a cage." And we said, "David, hold on. You know, the bird probably has owners that are missing it. So we've got to try to reunite the bird with its own family." And David said, "Well, okay, but for the meantime, let's give it a name. Let's name it Dreidel. Dreidel the parakeet." And that's what we did. So that night, Dreidel slept on a picture frame in our living room. And in the morning, it awakened us to the sounds of singing and chirping, and even a little Yiddish. Zeldala, geh schlafen. Zeldala, geh schlafen. Zelda, go to sleep. The next morning, when we all got up, David went off to school, and I decided I was going to try to figure out how to find the bird's parents. So I went over to my typewriter and I typed a notice to place in the elevators of the building next door, and even the newspaper for which I wrote. And I said, "Yiddish-speaking parakeet found. Owners, please call." And I listed our number. Well, we posted up the notices in the elevators, in the newspaper, but 2 weeks passed and nobody called for the bird, at which point we decided that Dreidel would become ours. We would adopt it. And so we did, and we bought Dreidel a cage and a little wooden dreidel to put in the bottom of the cage for it to play with. But because Hanukkah is a festival of freedom, we decided never to lock the cage. We would always keep the cage open so that Dreidel could fly around wherever and whenever he wanted to. And Dreidel was ours. Days, weeks passed, months, even years, and Dreidel became more and more a part of our family. When I would go to work in my study, I would sit at my typewriter typing out stories for the newspaper, and Dreidel would perch on the fingers that I was writing with, and every time I struck a key, Dreidel would hop up and down and flap its wings and then land on another one of my fingers. Time passed, our son David got older, and he went off to college. One night, during his junior year, it was a winter night, he went to a Hanukkah party, and he said, "Mama, Papa, I'm going to be home late, just know that." And we said, okay, and then we went to sleep. Shortly after we went to sleep, there was a phone call, and we picked it up, and who was on the other end? David, and he was so excited, we could barely understand him. He said, "Mama, Papa, you'll never believe this. I was out with my friends, who I've known for a long time, and finally, I'd never told them, but I told them the story of Dreidel the parakeet and how we found him and how he became part of our family. And one of my friends, her name is Zelda Rosen, and she said, 'I am that Zeldala. That is our parakeet. We lost it 10 years ago. And tomorrow, Zelda's going to come over with her mom and dad.'" Well, my wife and I barely slept that night because we were kind of nervous as to what was going to happen. Well, the next morning, we had them over for brunch, and Zelda came into the apartment with her mom and dad, and she was, of course, a wonderful young woman, and her parents were very gracious. As soon as they came in, they saw the little bird, and they called out, "Tsip, tsip," because that's what they had named it. And Dreidel, or Tsip Tsip, flew over to them, all excited to see its long-lost owners. And Dreidel really didn't know what to do. And I saw how attached the parents were to the parakeet, and I said, "Well, of course, you should take Tsip Tsip home with you." But David and my wife Esther said, "No, we've become so attached to the parakeet, he's ours." And then David smiled and said, "You know what? It's all going to work out fine, because you see, Zelda and I are really more than friends. We've been dating, and we've decided that after college we're going to get married, and Dreidel, or Tsip Tsip, will come live with the two of us." And so that's what happened. Zelda and David got married, and to this very day, Dreidel the parakeet lives with the two of them and their children, and his cage is never locked, so he can fly around whenever, wherever he wants to. And in it, there's always a Dreidel to play with. And every Hanukkah, Dreidel gets a gift. Sometimes it's a swing. Sometimes it's a bathtub. Sometimes it's a mirror. Some years, it's even a jingle bell. And you know what? Dreidel has developed a taste for latkes, which is fitting for a parakeet named Dreidel. Happy Hanukkah.